Steven, I'm tired and anxious today.
That's me every day, man.
Well, I don't know about tired. I get good sleep, but I had these dreams.
I had weird dreams last night, I'll tell you that.
This girl was getting impaled with a 30-inch something. And I'm like, why are you doing that? And I was just like, that is weird. I don't know where that came from, but I was like, how is she taking all of that? It didn't make any sense to me at all. She's getting impaled like someone stabbed her with a sword. And then I just, you wake up anxious, and I was sideways in my bed. Why was I sideways in my bed, Steven? My head was on my pillow, but my feet were going all the way towards the other side of the bed. Not to the bottom of the bed, but to the other side, to the side.
How do you get there?
Don't ask me how I got there. Maybe my cleaning people did something to my bed, like they made my sheets a certain way so it was hotter or something.
Have you ever fallen off the bed?
No.
I've done that once. I've had this one crazy dream that I was rolling around and rolling down a hill, and I literally rolled off my bed. And it's the scariest thing when you're mid-dream and all of a sudden you're on the floor and you're like, what the hell just happened? How did I get here?
So when I was a kid, I had a trundle bed.
Okay.
Right? Like a trundle bed is the one that goes underneath. And that's when like my brother slept in my room or a friend slept over. Yeah, well, this bed could have been turned into a bunk bed. My nephew actually has it now because it's wood. Like it's not particle board.
Yeah.
It's actually solid. I used to try to bite it to see what it tasted like just because I don't know why. I was a kid. And so...
Special Jared.
Special day. I remember that after I had my eye surgery, my parents put there were these rails, like this big long piece of wood rail that could go on.
That's what we had on our bunk beds, on the top bunk. So you wouldn't roll off the bed.
So you wouldn't roll off when I had my eye surgery, just in case I fell off. But it was I don't like that feeling of anxiousness. And I'm not one of these xenials who's anxious about every little thing and they're like, I'm just so anxious today. I need a mental health day.
Yeah, but you don't understand that people deal with that every day because you don't deal with it.
I
deal with it all the time. I've been wired like that. That's just how I've been from day one. I'm me. I'm like thinking about the worst possible scenario of what could happen, which is good and bad.
Well, when you work out, if you work out, does that go away because you're working out?
No,
you need to go to the rapist, and by I mean therapist. That's how TherApist. You need to go to the.
I do. You need to go.
No, I don't need. What do I need to go for?
We'll talk about that off air.
Really?
You went to the therapist a couple of times and you're like, no, you're wrong. I'm right. This is how I think. I'm fine.
First off, you weren't there. I wanted to send you to my therapist. I wanted to send you to the therapist so that you could tell him all about me.
I should.
And then that way it would be easier to be like, well, this is how other people perceive you. First off, that therapist, I stopped seeing that guy because I think he was hitting on me every week. Because every week I went in there, he goes, are you sure you're not gay? And I'm like, dude, I've told you like 73 fucking times. Like, there's nothing wrong.
It's a valid question, though, that he's asking.
Yeah, if you want to ask it once, but if you want to repeat it every week, I'm like, dude, I understand
what would
that
you
you're
say
into...
for him to think that?
No, I think he was hitting on me because he was into men. He would tell me stories about him with people.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, the whole therapy session with him always felt like it was him talking to me, and I'm just like, And so basically what happened with that guy is I just felt like every time I go, it just sounds like I'm complaining. And I don't want to sound like I'm complaining because I don't need to complain to this guy about YouTube numbers. I know what I need to do. I don't need to listen and talk to this guy. And the first therapist pissed me off, this lady that I was seeing, because she kept looking at the clock. And I'm like, will you stop looking at the clock?
Yeah, that's got to be frustrating.
Like,
clearly she's annoyed that you're there. You're taking up her time. That's annoying, especially when you're paying, a lot of money to probably see these therapists.
Right. And I'm like, stop looking. And I'm like, stop looking at the clock.
Yeah.
Really, like, put something in your pants that tells you what time it is. Don't put something above my head that you have to stop and look or check a watch. You should just be able to have a timer or some kind of vibrator device. Did you know the vibrator in 1864 was invented by Mortimer? Dr. Mortimer?
You're kidding,
That's a
right?
throwback to last week.
I was going to say, we talked about this multiple times on this podcast.
I know, but I was talking about a therapist. I didn't go for hysteria. Though when I was picking a therapist, I did go down their photos and I'm like, she's hot. And I know that's why I need therapy.
I'm not going to pick you based on your background, only on your photo.
Yes.
That's a blurry image. Definitely not going with this person.
No, it wasn't about blurriness or not. I was like, oh, she's attractive.
Hot or not, yeah.
Yeah, that's basically what it was. Now, is that my fault or is that Hot or Not's fault from the early 2000s?
But then how did you end up with the guy therapist?
A friend recommended him and said that he was good, so I was like, all right, maybe there's something to seeing a man instead of seeing a woman. Not that it matters. I don't care who I see. It's just trying to just get someone to resonate. I mean, that guy had something that resonated with me. He did say one thing, and I'll just give, and then we'll move on. But it was subjective reality, which was a thing, which is, if I say something, that doesn't mean someone else perceives what I said in that same way that I meant to say it. And so unless you paint a picture and explain it explicitly and make sure everybody's on the same page, you can't get upset if someone misunderstands you because they thought it was something else and you thought it was something else.
And what you do so well is you don't tend to explain things of how you want it to be done, but you know exactly how you want something to be done.
How do I want the video done, Steven?
Exactly.
Explain to people. No, explain to people what I tell you.
This is what you tell me. You say, just and it's done.
It goes like this. Steven's like, so what do you want done with this video? I'm like, I want a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and then that. That's what I want. And he's like, okay.
And basically, we attempt to make something out of nothing based on me knowing your personality and usually what you like and what you've shot in the past and all of that. And usually at the end, we come up with something that's close to your vision, but that's never communicated in the beginning. That's the hard part, or it's very hard for me to pull that out of you. And so I could see you getting frustrated at other people because you tend not to explain what you want, but you know exactly what you want in your head.
It's very hard to explain.
Or you think that they
things.
know what you know or something like that. You know what I mean?
Well, the difference is if I say something, like if I'm saying something to someone, I try to now be more explicitly, and I'm not talking about editing photos. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about making sure
they know what you know, kind of thing.
But I don't want to assume anymore. I want to make sure that we're actually on the same page. So you understand we're talking about this. Is that correct? We're on the same.
For example, you've seen like my emails towards other editors and how descriptive I am because I'm not sure if they know that this is in Premiere or that they know this is there or that they know we want this here or whatever it may be. Where you'll write like one line, like needs to be done. Sent.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Steven, take care of this.
Now, I think I'm over the top, though. I think I describe too much. I dumb it down too much. So I need to get better at that as well.
Yeah, but it also makes it abundantly and explicitly clear what you want.
Because there's no questions asked. It's usually, by the time I receive the final edit, everything's pretty much there, exactly how we wanted it, because I described everything in the beginning. But it takes a lot more pre-production to get to that point.
How are Dan's emails?
Well, usually with Dan, it's more on the phone. It's usually not going back and forth with email because Dan is not great at responding via email, or it takes him several hours, which blows my mind. I don't know why. He has gotten better over the years, but it's better for me just to call him right then and there and have a 30-minute conversation on what we're looking for. So,
hello.
And this is every time Dan answers, hello. Like I'm bothering him. I'm like, hi.
Hi,
Vogel.
Dan. Hey.
Hi.
How's it going? Anyway, guys, welcome to RAWtalk episode number 34, where we talk about photography and usually therapy and whatever
our emotions.
Else is. Yeah, well, it is good to talk about emotions. See, Steven, everybody's got emotions.
Oh, yeah.
And we're going to talk about emotions.
I'm super sensitive, man.
You are?
Yeah, give me a good movie. I'll give you a couple tears for sure.
Free Willy?
Oh, I'm like a little crybaby with that one.
Do you know what didn't make me cry? I was watching The Octopus, My Teacher the Octopus, or whatever it's called, on Netflix.
I don't know what that is.
It's a really good documentary about this guy who befriends an octopus over a year period.
Huh.
And I expected to cry more, but it didn't have that crying thing going for it. But it was actually really well done. Talk about a great documentary that Netflix picked up that this guy created. I do recommend checking it. I was late to the game. Everybody else was watching it. But it was My Teacher, the Octopus or something. And it just taught him about life. It's really well done. I don't know how they shot the whole thing. It's a guy with a camera free diving, and he did it. So
wow.
I would recommend watching it's like an hour and 30 minutes or something. It was a worthy watch.
I just started watching The Last of Us on HBO Max.
Yeah, what is that a continuation of something?
It was a video game, I think, a PlayStation video game like 10 years ago or so. And
but it's zombies, right?
They've now made it into a HBO series. And yeah, it's basically like I Am Legend meets Walking Dead. It's the end of the world, a zombie virus broke out, and everyone's pretty much zombies. They have quarantine zones.
I don't like zombie
It's
stuff,
a global
though.
pandemic, but the difference is instead of an infection or something like that, it's fungus. Fungus is taking over the body. fungi, and it completely
good?
just kills the human race. And so far, I'm only on episode 1. I think they only released that, the pilot, and it's a 90-minute pilot. Kind of sets you up from day one, in the past to like 1968, how they kind of predicted what's going to happen, and then it fast forwards and shows you, current day, and it's interesting. I was a huge fan of Walking Dead, so anything with zombies usually sparks my interest. If it's done well, it can't be done cheesy.
I'll think about it.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll give it a shot. But there's so many shows to watch. Hunters
so
season
many.
2 is back.
Yeah.
And Emily in Paris season 3.
I just caught up on The White Lotus season 2.
I refused to watch that.
Honestly, dude, I kept hearing things about it, and I watched it, and I'm like, I mean, it's all right. It's entertaining, but it's not like the best. I wouldn't go and say, go watch it.
No, I refused to watch season 2.
But people are raving about it.
Yeah, that's because they're dumb. I refuse to watch season 2. I watched season 1. I didn't like the characters. I didn't like the arc. I didn't like what it did. It was fine. It was interesting to watch it each week.
Exactly, it's entertaining.
I just don't like upsetting characters to me at this point, and I just don't want to watch stuff like that. So I just don't like that stuff. So I choose not to do it. Continuing on. You were here for one of the phone calls I got yesterday or 2 days ago. I'm tired.
Yes.
I get these random calls, right? They don't say spam because they're an actual legitimate person who's probably local. And it start like the other one the other day, because there were 2. So 2 days ago, I get one. Oh, and I think Dan will have the recording of it because it was the guy called during RAWtalk, Photo News Fix when I was recording it. Yeah. And so it was just like, hey, Jared, I think you met my brother over at this restaurant one time. I'm like, and? He's like, yeah, blah. I'm like, dude, I'm recording right now. And yeah, you're always like, why do you answer the phone? But sometimes we're waiting for packages and deliveries and certain things.
Well, you get a lot more random calls than the average person, so it makes more sense for you to pick up the phone. But I get, the only phone calls I get are from you, usually. So I never pick up a random phone number.
Well, I call the guy back after I'm done Photo News Fix. I'm like, what's up? And so I don't like small talk. I don't care about your brother. I don't know who your brother is. Yeah. Like, get to the point, dude. And so he's like, so yeah, I've got some very interested buyers. I've got some aggressive developers in the area right now looking at properties. And I'm like, what property? So he tells me which property.
Which of my 8 properties are you talking about?
Well, that's the question is which property? I got 4 properties. So which one are you talking about? And in this case, he was talking about the studio. And I'm like,
the factory,
okay.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, what's your offer? He's like, well, I don't have an. I'm like, why are you calling me? You just said that you have aggressive buyers and developers who are looking to develop in the neighborhood. Why don't you come to me with an offer first? Well, I'm like, I don't want to hear well. And then I end up being a freaking asshole, but I think it's warranted and valid because I'm getting cold called about buying and selling shit all the time. And I'm frustrated that if you think your people are so into buying something, then come to me with an offer. And I'm not giving you a number. You come to me with a number and I'll tell you yes or I'll tell you no. But I said, don't come to me at market value because I'm not interested in selling like that. You got to make it so good that I can go buy a fucking house with a bowling alley in it.
Exactly. If they're that aggressive, they should have a number prepared before they even call you.
No shit.
They should be standing out front right now with money in their hands.
They should back the money truck up and be like, hey, Jared, here's this. So this place is valued on the market. This would sell for about $1 million right now.
Okay.
That's what this place would go for.
Because it's not just the factory itself, is you also have a couple of lots that we consider the garden area that you could easily bulldoze the whole thing down and make how many different apartments?
Well, it's already zoned. It's already zoned because the last person zoned it to build up to 38 feet, I believe, or 48 feet, whatever the height of the other buildings are. And you could put in, you would have to do business downstairs and commercial downstairs and real residential upstairs. You could do that. That's what it's zoned for in the area. Now I could put, I believe, a really nice sized building on that because I own technically block to block where it is here. Mm-hmm. And when I bought it, it's doubled in value since I purchased it in 2015 at this point. But what I said to this guy, I'm like, don't come to me at market value. Come to me with an offer. You don't have an offer. Don't waste my fucking time. I haven't heard from him. And I'm really tempted to just call him back and be like, yeah, so about your aggressive people, were you just full of shit? Well, yesterday I'm sitting here. I got a phone call and Steven's in the other room.
I did hear this call. Yes.
What did you hear, Steven?
I heard you. I heard you being an ass to him. I will say that. But
what did I say?
Rightfully so. I mean, you were basically saying the same thing you just said. That
no, it was. You probably just heard Well, that's none of your business.
Yes, that's it.
That's none of your
and
business.
over, he would ask you and question, what are you doing with the property? And you're like, well, that's none of your business. Well, when are you thinking of selling it? That's none of your business. Like nonstop, over and over.
Random phone call from a guy. Random. Now, it was local, so I picked it up again. It didn't say spam. And again, the guy's fishing. Oh, hey, is this Jared? I'm like, I just stay silent all the time. And I'm like, what? Like, yes, can I help you? Oh, yeah, we're interested in this property that you have. Right?
I was honestly, I kept waiting for him to freak out because the tone you were using, I was like, oh,
he did.
But again, rightfully so. I think you can use that tone when someone cold calls you and starts questioning about your properties.
Yeah, so he's like asking me about my property. He's like, yeah, I'm interested in this property, which so happens to be my house, which used to be a warehouse. So all they see is that it's a warehouse. And he's like, yeah, so what are you doing with this property? And I'm like, none of your business. I don't know you. I'm not answering your questions. Well, are you interested in this? I don't know you. None of your business. What are you planning on doing? None of your business. And I'm like, I'm tired of people like you calling me out of nowhere, expecting me to answer your questions about something that is none of your business. Mm-hmm. He's like, and he keeps going because I'm like, and you know what I used? I said, now, this is some Boiler Room shit going on right now. I'm like, are you watching Boiler Room? Because you're doing that because everything I say, you've got a script. You've got another retort to keep the phone call going.
He does not
And he just
kept
going. Kept going. And then just like, dude, no, none of your business. And I'm like, why are you asking? He's like, I'm just matching your energy. I'm like, my energy is I'm being an asshole because you're asking questions that you don't deserve answers to.
Yeah.
So no, I'm not interested in buying. I'm not interested in selling. I'm not interested in working with you. He's like, well, if you're ever interested in selling your properties and you want a company that actually gets results, I'm like, oh, so now you're telling me that I'm a moron and I don't know how to work with people that actually get jobs and deals done? You don't know me. You don't know what I do. That's none of your business. And I'm like, I'm going to go now. And so that was it. I just don't want to hang up on people just straight up. I want to hear what they have to say, but he was going straight up Boiler Room.
I haven't had anyone call me yet, but I have had several texts come through. I got one just this past week saying, are you thinking of selling your property? We are in the market to buy 1 to 2 houses this month.
What, your RV?
Let us know ASAP, blah, blah, blah.
Your RV? Your shanty?
My little tent in the golf course.
Tent in the backyard.
and my house is very very appealing because I'm in an old school neighborhood, but it's new construction.
That's because someone died in the old house.
No, they didn't die in the house, but the house burned down basically, and it was a vacant lot for maybe 10, 12 years. And then a builder came, built a new construction house, and I ended up purchasing that. And
I like it.
And our backyard is the golf course, so you always want something like that because there's never going to be homes behind you.
Never say never, Stephen. When the recession hits,
no, they can't because there's a lake right behind us as well, and you're on a water table, so they can't even dig or build on top of that.
Bring, bring.
Hello. Yeah. Hi. Is this Mr. Eckert?
Yes.
I see that you have a property here in New Jersey. I have some very interested buyers that are very eager to get into that property. Are you looking to sell it?
That's none of your business.
Well, actually, it is my business because my business is buying and selling homes and helping people get top dollar for what they're in. Are you interested in selling it? Is there anything that I could say that would make you interested? Because I would like to turn it into a yes.
And this is where I hang up.
Well, don't hang up yet, because if you really want to get top dollar, I can do that and I can add a blowy.
Could you imagine doing that every day, all day? Well, and just having aggressive people on the other end with attitudes, rightfully so.
Right. I don't want to be a dick because this is their job. But then again, their job is being an asshole.
That's the thing, is you can't even get off the phone. You're like, okay, I have to go. I'm at work, or I can't talk about this right now. And they just keep trying to get you on the phone and to get further into the conversation. You're like, no, I'm not friends with you. I don't know who you are. I've never said I wanted to sell my house. Leave me alone.
Leave me alone. Leave Brittany alone. Steven, let's move on to something. Adobe says it isn't using your photos to train AI image generators. Now, someone came up with a clickbait title for Photo News Fix, and I'm pointing fingers at this guy, Steven, came up with a really good title for the last Photo News Fix before the one we put out yesterday.
You're welcome.
What was that title? Shame on you? Or no, mine was Shame on You. Yours, let me pull it up, was
Adobe caught red-handed. Did they trick you two? No, wait, not you two the band, but you two.
Right. Now, that's a really good question because it's like, well, what were they caught red-handed for? And did I get stuck in the middle of this thing? Question mark. And yes, so that was a really good title. So basically it talked about that the terms of service said that Adobe opted you into something automatically, which said that they could use your images that were on their servers, their cloud servers, to train their AI. They have come back and they've answered to Petapixel. I love how Petapixel is like, at the time of posting the original article, we did not hear back from them. And it's like, do you know they gave them 12 minutes to reply back before they post the article?
Exactly. You have 3 hours to respond. Yeah.
Right. And it's like, well, they got to do something. They got to do something other than that. So let me read the Petapixel thing to you with attribution here, because we got it from Petapixel. The language of its content analysis section in its privacy and personal data settings says that by default, users give Adobe permission to analyze content using techniques such as machine learning, e.g. for pattern recognition, to develop and improve our products and services. Now that sounded a lot like artificial-based intelligence. Stephen, go ahead and read the actual reply. I don't want to read the whole article here to everybody.
So they went on to say, we give customers full control of their privacy, preferences, and settings. The policy and discussion is not new and has been in place for a decade to help us enhance our products for customers. They say when it comes to generative AI, Adobe does not use any data stored on customers' Creative Cloud accounts to train its experimental generative AI features. We are currently reviewing our policy to better define generative AI use cases.
Then it goes on a little later where the guy reiterated to Bloomberg's Brody Ford this week when he interviewed Adobe's chief product officer, Scott Belsky. In that interview, Belsky says that the mass criticism of the language and the privacy and personal data settings served as a wake-up call and promised that the policy isn't intended to be used with AI image generators. And this is a quote, "We are rolling out a new evolution of this policy that is more specific. If we ever allow people to opt in for generative AI specifically, we will need to call it out and explain how we're using it," he tells Bloomberg. "We have to be very explicit about these things." So yeah, they answered it and said that they're not.
Well, they said that it still helps enhance their products, but
I
they
don't know
say
how
it's
that
not
works.
going towards generative AI.
So maybe they're just beating around the bush and saying, we are actually looking at your images, but we're not using them to turn it into stable diffusion or any of those other things.
They weren't very specific on what exactly they're doing with your data. And they're not saying they're not using your data.
And I still come to the point where I don't care. I don't care what happens. I really don't. And people are like, how could you not care about this? I'm like, because there's so many other things in this world to really care about. And I don't care if my images make the Adobe selection process better. And if they're not, I mean, it's not like a human is sitting there going through your images and being like, oh yeah, look at this image you uploaded of this girl or of Steven. Yeah, look at Steven in his backyard. Oh, is that Steven in the pool? Sexy. Yeah. It's not like they're doing that. I mean, maybe someone is, and that can always happen. There's always that one engineer that goes in and can have access to something.
I mean, that even goes back to the photo lab days when you get your 35 millimeter roll of 24 pictures developed, and the actual lab supervisor is the one going through your photos and seeing every image you took. So I mean, there's countless times where I saw naked people in bed or artistic photos.
How was it? Was it good?
I was like, oh, make it double for me.
Yeah.
There's like Robin Williams in Photo Lab or 1 hour photo.
Did you do that? Did you do it?
No, I did not do that.
I remember going to the photo lab. It's like 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old. And every once in a while, they'd be like, check this out.
You could call the police if there was actually, underage nudity or if it was a specific sexual act. I never actually had to do that, luckily.
What type of specific sexual acts, Steven?
Anything, really. Because you don't know if it was consensual. You don't know if it was a hidden camera. You don't know any of that. But when it came to the nudity I saw, it was mainly like artistic nudity, like posing, nude portraiture, that kind of stuff.
Stranger danger? Is that what you're saying? That someone's taking pictures in a hotel room and it's awesome nude portraiture?
I did see a lot of that, yeah.
So they were terrible photos?
For the most part, yeah.
GWCs, guys with cameras who just want to see girls naked and take terrible photos. That is something that is a problem in this world. Now, I will say that in the 80s, I do have pictures of myself and my brother in the bathtub that my mom took.
Well, when it came to that kind of stuff, I let it slide because, first of all, I ended up becoming friends with, some of the people that would come in because they would shoot film all the time. And the one lady, for example, she would take photos of her kids, and I knew they were her kids, and they would be every once in a while like a kid in a tub or something, and maybe a body part you would see, but it was never anything sexual or sexualized or any of that.
Exactly. It's just like, look, the nudity is not a problem. Our country has a problem with nudity, and it's the morality police that are like, oh, I can't do this.
Well, I do think when it's sexualized, though, then it becomes somewhat of an issue, but nudity should not be a problem. I see what you're saying.
Sexualizing, well, of course, of a minor is an absolute problem.
Exactly.
That's child porn.
Yes.
But when it comes to sexuality as an adult and consenting adults, nowadays, no one's taking their film to get developed. They're just going to shoot it themselves.
Do they even develop film anymore at CVS's and Rite Aids and any of your corner convenience stores?
Costco just canceled their developing of altogether, but I think they outsourced it anyway. And speaking of anxiety, to bring it all the way back to the beginning, Stephen, once I start doing something that takes my mind off of everything else, I'm totally good. That's why the gym works for me. That's why doing the podcast works for me. That's why getting out of the studio, and maybe the drawing works for me, which we'll come back to the drawing in just a minute.
Oh, I can't wait.
So really, I still don't care that Adobe is doing what they're doing. Most people don't read terms of services. I'm not going to read the terms of service. I don't care. I will give them. If they want to use my images to help teach the machine, then they will use my images to help teach the machine.
And they're doubling down again, saying that, if there's any locally stored data on your computer, they're not going to access it. And which, for me, that's pretty much all of my data. All of my photos, for the most part, are on my personal hard drive or on my personal cloud space, not on Adobe servers. So I don't really care what they do if I'm using their cloud sync service. That's fine because I'm using their service. But again, I don't really use it anyway, so it doesn't affect me at all.
I mean, theoretically, if I upload something, they shouldn't be able to look at it or scan it or whatever, because that's almost like Apple who tried to introduce the thing where they were going to scan images or troll images that are uploaded to the that people take, and if they see a naked kid or something, it's going to report that person.
Oh wow.
But that's the same thing. It's like my mom took pictures of us in the bathtub. Parents take pictures of their kids all the time.
But I also I see why they're doing it though.
Well, I could see for explicit stuff.
Sure.
But then on the other hand, just because someone is nude doesn't automatically mean that it's sexual.
And it goes the opposite way as well. Yeah.
Well, right. But that's one of these things that's a perception. What did I say? The subjective reality that some people see that all nudity is sexual, regardless of anything, or an erection or women's nipples. That's terrible, and we can't see that, and we can't have that. No kid is growing up until they're caring about nudity, until they're told that we don't show this in public. We don't do this. We don't do this. So that's a learned thing. Kids don't care about nudity. They're mostly modest, not as modest as when they get older, when they're finally told, like, you don't do this in public. You don't, nudity. But you go to Europe, they're walking around without shirts on all the time.
What?
The kids. No, seriously, you go to the beaches, kids, they don't wear clothes sometimes. That's just how it is. European countries are totally different with how they don't care about nudity.
But people aren't just walking around topless everywhere.
Not everywhere, but I'm talking about if someone's at the beach or a water thing and they're going swimming.
Sure.
Like a little kid, some 7-8-year-olds might not have shirts on that are girls, but it doesn't matter. They don't care.
Yeah.
It's just, anyway, speaking of this, is Facebook about to, and Instagram, going to lift the ban on bare breasts?
Oh.
Now, there was
that was actually a pretty solid transition.
There's a good transition, Stephen.
There you go.
Speaking of transitioning, this is about a transgender couple that posts photos of themselves with and without their
transition. Look at that.
Yeah, it's
you've been waiting to use that one forever.
No, I just came out with that out of nowhere, Stephen.
You just came out? What?
So basically, there's an oversight committee with Facebook or Meta, whoever does something, who's trying to determine whether an image that was banned in the first place should have been banned. And basically the moral of the story is they've decided that no, it shouldn't have. And that means they should reevaluate all of the other rules going back to say if the nipple should be freed for everybody. So let me read a little bit of the article to you. The Oversight Board, which is made up of individuals from a variety of backgrounds, including law, technology, human rights, politics, and others from around the world, announced the recommendation Tuesday after revealing that it's overturned Meta's decision to remove 2 posts in accordance with the policy. The posts from 2021 and 2022 came from the same account and featured the same couple who are transgendered and non-binary. Both posts feature. Hey, Stephen. Speaking of non-binary, and I was when I was at painting class, the first class, the teacher forgot to go around and ask people what their preferred pronouns are.
How dare her!
So it started with me. Of course, I was the first. I was to her left, so she points at me and she's like, "And what are your preferred pronouns?" And I'm like, "Whatever you want to call me." I have, and I say this to defend myself time and time again, is that if you're someone who's strong into pronouns and you like the fact that teachers and people are asking for your pronouns first and foremost, that's good. I don't have a problem with that,
Sure.
But don't get upset with me if I don't want to say he, him. I don't care what you call me. Call me Jared. Call me asshole, because I am.
That's
call
what I
me
call
whatever you want. Call me whatever you want to call me. I don't care. So I'm just like, I don't care what you call me. Move on. And so then the next people are like, he, him, they, them, she, her, and that's fine. I'm never going to misgender someone who makes me aware of what their gender is. Just don't get upset if someone can't tell.
As long as they make you aware,
right,
yes.
Make me aware. I'm just, that's a whole side thing. Is like, I'm not.
But it's when they get offended when you misgender them, and how would you know?
Right.
That's the thing. How would you know unless they're wearing it across their shirt?
What? I shoot raw?
Yeah.
I am a woman. I am a man.
Something like that. Yeah.
I am non-binary.
Because sometimes you can't tell. And it's just how you can't get mad at me for misgendering you or saying the wrong pronoun or whatever it may be. I have no idea. You could educate me and say, hey, I prefer to be called this, but don't freak out.
Yeah. So I will say I've gotten much better at being gender neutral when I'm speaking about a kid sometimes these days, because you can't tell with like a 2, 3, 4-year-old.
Oh, yeah. That
has a hoodie on. And I was like, oh, they're so cute.
Or they have short hair and they're a girl or something like that, or a guy with long hair. It's tough.
Like, I don't want to be little boy, little girl. I'll be like, oh, that's awesome. Thank you. Right. And I just cut it off at that. And I think that is a thing that we've gotten progressively better at is just being more aware of it, which is fine. I just don't want it shoved down my throat.
Yep.
Which is what my therapist was trying to do. Yay, that's a good transition, Stephen. That's a good callback.
There you go.
Anyway, let me continue to read the petapixel thing here because I didn't actually go to the full source. The posts were removed for featuring breasts and a fundraising link, but after the couple appealed the decision, the Oversight Board looked at the case and said the removal was made in error. The case led the Oversight Board to the same conclusion that free the nipple advocates have been saying for years. The policy doesn't make sense and doesn't work in practice. The restrictions and exceptions to the rules on female nipples are extensive and confusing, particularly as they apply to transgendered and non-binary people. How do you know someone's non-binary? Anyway, exceptions to the policy range from protests to scenes of childbirth and medical and health contexts, including top surgery. What the fuck is top surgery, Stephen?
I think they're either reducing their breasts, right? Or making them bigger.
And breast cancer awareness. The release reads, adding that convoluted and poorly defined exceptions make the policy unworkable in practice. So it just keeps on going that it says they're going to review it. I don't think that it means they're actually going to lift the ban as of now, but I'll say that Stephen and I were doing a review of a lens, the 20-40 Tamron, and I took some pictures at the Philadelphia Museum of Art, and one of them has some naked women from 1865, and I noticed that they were very attractive and they had great asses and very nice breasticles. And I was like, Steven, I think I should put this. Did you say stubble?
Supple.
Oh, supple. I was like, Steven, do you think I should include this in the YouTube video? And then I'm like, yeah, I should. And then I was like, But see, I have to think twice because someone might get offended about a painting done in 1864 because I don't know the age of these women.
It's art. I think that's a totally different story, but I don't know. I guess there's the possibility of someone getting... everyone gets offended at something these days.
Do you remember who the center focal point of the Free the Nipple campaign video was that went viral a bunch of years ago, Steven?
You?
Yeah, do you know who took that picture? Me.
Me, I took that photo.
You pressed the button. Yes, you did. Steven took the picture, and
I still have nightmares to this day.
My Keira Knightley photo, if you ever... So there's a photo of Keira Knightley where she posed nude for a French magazine, and she's wearing lace arm sleeves, and she looks great. I love Keira Knightley. I'm a big fan. Mm-hmm. So in 2015, I'm like, Steven, I want to recreate this photo. I literally jump out of the shower, dripping wet, with my hair dripping wet. I put on the pants.
We tried hard to really mimic that photo.
I couldn't bend my hips the same way that she did, but it's really good.
I'm like, Jared, a little to the left. Yeah. Lift that one nip up to the right.
Yeah, sorry, Steven. I was also probably 20-ish pounds or more lighter. I was not as muscular.
You were a lot thinner for sure, yeah.
I wasn't muscular then, but...
You definitely thought you were, though.
Whatever, Steven. I post the image, and then everybody starts messaging me a couple weeks later like, oh my God, you're in this video, the Free the Nipple. They stole my image.
You're the voice of the campaign.
They didn't ask for permission.
Because isn't it on Flickr?
Well, I put it on Flickr, but it says attributions. They didn't attribute.
Okay. Gotcha.
They didn't attribute, but I don't care because people knew that it was me and it was kind of funny. But
more me.
I'm all for freeing the nipple. I'm all for nudity. I'm all for it and people not being such pansy pussies. There, I said it. Don't yell at me. A pussy is a scaredy cat. You know, pussycats get scared. Yeah, we're going there again, Steven. But no, really, I have no problem with nudity. And what do you think made Tumblr so big? It was more porn than anything.
Yeah, exactly.
But Tumblr was all about porn. But choose not to look at it or have a second app just for that. It's called OnlyFans. Look, tastefully done. But then how do you say what is tastefully done? How does somebody determine it? Because we know that Instagram has discriminated against nude women who were larger versus nude women who were thin. They've taken down pictures because the women were larger but showed their butt and may not have shown a nipple or anything, but then someone in the same vein, same similar image who was seen as thin, that image got to stay. So it's like, well, how does any of this make sense? So I know that it's a maybe they will put sensitive content on it. I don't know. I don't have the answer to this, Steven, but I think that women's nipples are perfectly fine.
That photo of you dressed as Keira Knightley, by the way, is my photo, your contact photo on my phone.
It's everybody. So it's the contact photo that I put in.
And is that why? I thought I added it years ago.
No, I put it there. And what happens is if I call someone and they're on an iPhone, my nipples line up with the do not disturb or the other, send a text back. So it gets covered by the...
Wait, did you crop it to make it that way?
No, it just turned out to be that way perfectly.
Oh, man.
All right. I'm glad we put that one to rest now. Hey, Steven, play that new sound we talked about. That's right. That is the sound of this week's sponsor, Iris. Iris works at iris-works.com/fro. What is Iris Works, you may be asking? They are a CRM. And I was like, Steven, I was like, what is a CRM? I had to Google this. It's a custom relationship manager, because what Iris lets you do is manage email marketing, online booking, contracts. Yeah, this is for photographers, by the way. They allow you to make contracts right in the app, and they store them and save them for you, which makes it much easier. You can do invoicing through it. You can do quotes through it. You can even take payment via Square, which is going to help out quite a bit, because how many times have you gone to get paid and you're like, can you send me a check? It's actually bad business, in my opinion, when you try to say, well, I don't take credit cards. Well, and the people's reasoning is, well, the fee. Well, would you rather get paid or not paid, and build the fee into it? Really, just build it in. It's cost of doing business. A lot of stuff becomes tax deductible anyway in the long run. Anyway, so that's one of the things that they offer. And another thing that they offer is the ability to build out lead pages, which is pretty good. What a lead page is something that you put up on your site. Say you do a vlog and it's like the 5 best places to get married in your neighborhood, which is something you should be doing, by the way, when you are trying to get more jobs, and you have a sign-up box that's like, for 5 more tips on how to pick the best photographer, sign up here. You get people into your funnel, and then you can have autoresponders that send them questionnaires that you can create. Questionnaires like, what are you looking for? Are you looking for boudoir? Are you looking for weddings? Are you looking for family portraits? Well, this site lets you do all of those things and more. That's right. I'm going to read off the features, and then we're going to wrap it up. Email marketing, online booking, contracts, invoices and quotes, automated workflows, lead pages, free photography questionnaires, integrations, mobile app, free migration. They help you do that, and preferred partner support. Preferred partner from Square. They'll also help you set this bad boy up. So to get 20% off, go to iris-works.com/fro to get 20% off. Basically, you should be focused on what you do best, which is shooting. I made this up. They didn't tell me to say this. I think this is a good slogan, and I should probably charge them for it. But you should be focused on doing what you do best, which is shooting, and not pencil pushing. So let Iris push the pencils for you. Let them cross the I's and dot the T's. Hey, you see what I did there? And that is how we're going to do our plugs in the future.
Yes.
We hope that you support the sponsors of the shows that we have, because that is just another way that we can continue doing what we're doing. And we hope that you enjoy our episodes and choose to listen or choose to support some of these sponsors, or at the very least, at least go check it out to see if it fits for you, like iris-works.com/fro. The link will be in the description that Steven will make sure is there, so that you can click it to tick it and check out Iris. And that is our plug. Do you want to know why Steven didn't get to say anything during the plug?
Why?
Steven, do you want to guess?
Why did Steven not get to say anything?
Well, because if you say a word, I heard you chuckle in the background, which was kind of funny, but if you say a word, that means that I might owe you 12%. And I don't want you getting 12%.
Actually, the main reason I didn't say anything, because I know if I say a word, it's going to go on some other tangent, and it's going to be a 10-minute plug instead of a 90-second read. That's the main reason I kept my mouth shut.
Yeah, we're figuring out the plugs, guys. We're going to figure out how to make it work. I don't like how other shows do it, where they just start an episode off, or before the episode even starts, they're reading 4 minutes of plugs. I don't even listen to them. I personally skip them when they're at the very beginning of the show. And we hope that when we work it in, we play the song so that you know that this is a plug. That's the whole point.
Yep.
Because I don't like when people try to integrate it and like, oh,
when they try to make it organic, and they're like, yeah, I do this all the time, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, all right, come on. It's going to be a 5-minute plug now when it could have just been a 90-second read. Just get on with it. Over. Done.
All right, moving on. Sony came out with a 20-70 f4.
Yes.
Now, we had this lens pretty early. We got to test it out.
Did we have it for a month or even
longer? At
least
a month and a half. We had it, and we took it. What did I take it? I took it out to photograph my niece and nephew, and I took it to the Philadelphia Museum of Art, and we questioned a lot of things about this lens. So our review will be coming out. Already played with it, but I did give some of my feedback on the last Photo News Fix and said we're going to talk more in depth about my feelings and Steven's feelings and thoughts about this lens that Sony came out with. Sony, and by Sony I mean Steven. What do you think about 20-70 f4?
So I do think it's a solid range. Sony is considering it the new standard zoom lens. So instead of your 24-70, they're now saying the 20-70. The difference being an f4 versus f2.8. And their main reason for being an f4 is that since they went wider, if it was a 2.8, it'd be a ginormous lens that's heavy and much more expensive. And I do understand that, but at the same time, from a photography standpoint, I'd personally rather have a 2.8. If I'm going to get an f4 lens, I would probably shoot for something like a 24-105, which has also optical image stabilization built in, where this has no reach. Image stabilization, and you have more reach. Now, again, that's shifted more towards the long end versus the wide end, but you're only talking a couple millimeters here. And their big thing was it doesn't need image stabilization because you can simply put on active mode stabilization in the camera and then you have a gimbal-like stabilized lens. But the thing is, the second you turn on active mode, it essentially turns that 20 millimeters into nearly a 24 millimeter. Now, again, I'm talking about video here. But I'd rather just get the 24-105 f4, stay at 24, don't put active mode on, use my image stabilization in the lens, and it's good enough. So that's my big thing about this lens. Plus the price, it's a little too expensive. I think it should have been more in the $700-800 range to compete with the Sigmas and the Tamrons. They're 28-70, 28-75, 2.8s, even the 20-40 f2.8 that you mentioned earlier from Tamron.
Yeah. So my whole thing has always been 2.8 or better.
Sure.
That means 1.2s, 1.4s, 1.8s.
And we're talking
F2s.
strictly photography here, not so much video. So yes, I do agree on that.
Yes, I talk photography from that standpoint, but the reason I say 2.8 or better is because I know how frustrating it is to have a variable aperture lens, not that this is one, but to have f4s. Do they get the job done? Sure. But it's not just about being able to raise the ISO up higher today and compensate for not having a 2.8 because you can go up an extra stop. It's about the quality of glass that you get. There's a big difference between my 28-70 f2 Canon RF lens and the 24-70 2.8 RF. There's just a dynamic look. There's some dimension, extra contrast, extra shapeness and sharpness, and you just get a different feel.
Yeah, but I think that has to do with
other
more
lenses.
of it being f2 versus 2.8, not so much the quality of the glass.
But even if I was to shoot at 2.8, I still have a better look. The colors, the tones, the density, the textures, that stuff comes out better even shooting at the same apertures. And I've seen it with those wider. I've seen it with a bunch of different lenses, like the 14-35 Canon. Mm-hmm. You can see it that you just miss out on certain middle areas of gradations and the details in the shadows. I just feel like you pick that stuff up better. It's resolved better with better glass. And I just feel like it's just better. It's less mushy. That's something that I've always felt with better glass. That's not to say that an f4 is a bad option. When you get to longer lenses, a 300 f4 Nikon PF was a mind-blowing lens. It was so small. It was smaller than a 24-70 2.8.
Well, and also
at the time.
f4, when you're, that kind of, at that telephoto, 300 millimeters, it doesn't really matter being f4 because you're still going to have an insane amount of compression.
Well, my whole thing came down to, do I want a 6-pound lens or a lens that weighs less than a pound that fits in my bag that I can grab randomly? Because that 6-pound lens that I have to carry over my shoulder with a monopod is taking away my ability to work quickly and efficiently, and it's hurting my body because it's much heavier, and I'm not losing anything at this point with f4 in a 300 f4. Yes, the 2.8 is going to be better, but for the amount of time that I was actually using it, the 300 f4 made more sense at the time.
Well, and that's a totally different story, again, because you're talking about a giant lens that weighs probably 6 to 8 pounds, being the 300 2.8, versus a very compact and light and portable 300 f4 that you can literally throw in your bag and or even have it as a walk-around lens even. It's that light.
Yep.
But my thing with the 20-70, again, is just I think the price is a little too much, especially when it comes to the European pricing. They're asking like 1,500 euros, I think, which I don't understand why it's that much more expensive than the US pricing. I mean, it should be more like 1,000 euros if you do the conversion. And again, you have lenses like the Tamrons and the Sigmas, the 2.8s, that are much more affordable. And I think a newbie or an amateur coming on board and really just buying their first round of lenses, they're going to look at 2.8 and just think in their head like, oh, 2.8 is better than f4 and it's cheaper. Why would I go with the 20-70 f4 over a 28-70 2.8?
Yeah, I want to promote the 24-70 art lens. Now, this is for Sony E-mount, but
or
the 24-70 2.8 Sigma art is the same price as this 20-70. Yes, you're sacrificing 10 degrees or whatever on the wider side, but I just feel that 2.8 is going to be a better option for the long run. But another thing I noticed is when you look at different people that reviewed the lens, because we chose not to put our review out yet, and not prioritize it because we have
with
a feeling
50 other people that put out the
when
review.
Sony gives these new lenses, they give it to like 25, 30, 40 different
Everybody.
people. And so everybody's releasing the lens at the date and time that it gets announced.
When the embargo
except
lifts,
except if you're DP Review, who leaked it 3 hours early, and not DP Review TV, but DP Review put it up 3 hours early.
They put it up at 7 a.m. Pacific, but it was 7 a.m. Eastern Standard. So
right.
I could see the confusion.
So we will put ours out, but it doesn't really benefit for a lens like this to put it out at the same time as everybody else. We'll get our views for it in the long run. But what I noticed from people that did put it out is a lot of them talk about, this is my dream lens, or this lens is priced great. It's not that bad. It's $1,100. And I want to be like, well, they sent it to you. Would you, as a photographer who is a low-level amateur or looking to become a professional or make some money, would you legitimately spend $1,100 plus tax on a lens like this? Would you do that? Unless you're buying at B&H with the Pay-Boo card where you pay the tax and they pay you back. You didn't hear the bling. You didn't hear the sound effect because that wasn't a paid sponsor. Maybe another episode will be a paid sponsor by them. But I just feel that a lot of these reviewers forget the fact that they get given, not to keep, because I already sent ours back, but they get to use these lenses, and they're so jaded by the fact that they get cameras, they get bodies to use, and don't have to turn around and buy them for themselves. I just can't justify spending $1,100 for an f4 when there's 2.8s for the same price, or there's other options that might be better at less price. If this thing was priced better, Stephen, as we said, it might have been a direction to go.
Yep.
And to be like, you know what? I think you could get away as a starter lens with a $799 20 to 70 f4 as a good option. But when Tamron is offering a 17 to 28 2.8, a 28 to 75 2.8, a 70 to 180 2.8,
The entire trinity.
and one's $799 and one's $899, I'd rather have go even wider than 20. If we want to go wide, let's go really wide.
And I get what Sony was saying is that they simply shifted toward the opposite end, the telephoto end, where Sony chose to choose the route of, shifting
Sigma.
towards the wide.
Tamron.
Or Tamron. And they chose to go towards the wide end, and it's a lot more difficult doing it that way. And I do think a lot more people prefer more of the wider end than the telephoto end when you're just talking a couple millimeters. But when it comes to these lenses, I always try and get into the mindset of someone, again, on a budget buying. I think the demographic for these types of lenses are people that just getting into photography, maybe have enough for like a Canon RP body or like a A7 IV at most. Maybe they're stepping up from APS-C, maybe college level kids or someone, again, just on a strict budget. And I just think $1,100 is a lot to ask for someone just getting into photography, and that's going to be one of their first lenses. I'd rather, again, go more towards the $500, $600, $700 range, maybe $800 at most, because I think anything above $500 for the average person is a lot of money, unless you're a dedicated working photographer. When it comes to the quality of the glass, I do think the 20 to 70 from Sony is going to be better than the Tamrons, the Sigmas, all of them, especially because it's native. Yeah, it's going to be much sharper, probably better when it comes to vignetting and stuff like that. Overall, it's probably going to be a much more superior lens, but again, does it justify the extra $300-$400? So that's my big thing. And I think for most people, that's a hard no, because even an extra $100 or $200 is a lot of money.
And I think most people that would be looking that this lens was geared towards are the amateurs or advanced amateurs or someone just starting out.
Exactly.
And it's a hard sell to $1,100. I rather have something a lot of people look for something that's more versatile. They want something longer. Like I'm looking at the Tamron 35 to 150. Now 35 isn't as wide, but this is an f2 to 2.8. It's $1,900. Like people want a lens that's going to give them more bang for their buck. One of the best lenses in terms of range was a Nikon 24 to 120. That was an f4.
And that's why I would personally go for the 24 to 105 route, or if I was a Nikon shooter, the 24 to 120, if I'm shooting like video or something like that, because again, f4 I'm not really a huge fan of, but video it's fine. Yeah,
Nikon doesn't, they don't make this 24 to 120.
No, they now have a Z-mount version of it.
They do?
They do. They just came out with it, I think, when they announced the Z9. I used it. If you remember, I shot the entire Z9 review with the 24 to 120, and I loved it because, again, I had all the range in the world. I didn't have ultra wide, but I don't prefer shooting crazy wide anyway with distortion and everything like that. So 24 is kind of as wide as I'll go when it comes to video.
They do have it, Steven.
Yeah.
And it's
only been out for about a year, but...
And guess what? It's less expensive than the Sony 20-70 f4.
How much is it?
$1,096.95.
It's like $3 cheaper.
Yeah, but still, I'd rather have the versatility. If I'm going f4 and I want to have versatility, I want the 24-120 to reach out.
And again, their whole argument was like, well, you're going to lose out on the extra 4 millimeters, which is like a 10-degree difference. But at the same time, if I'm doing video, I need that stabilization if I'm doing run and gun. Now, I guess for people that aren't run and gun or moving the camera, it's totally fine. But personally, I want the versatility, like you said.
Yeah. So, and Nikon now offers, they have a 24-200.
But that's a variable aperture, isn't it?
Well, yeah, but I want to read what the variable. It's a 4 to 6.3.
Yeah.
So it's variable, but shit, it's a one lens to almost rule them all for someone who doesn't care.
Well, if I had a Z6 body or a Z5 all day, 24-200.
That's $896.95. So the moral of the story is this it's nice to see that they tried something unique to go to 20-70. It is a light lens. It's easy to carry.
Super small, super light.
You do get wider. I like the pictures out of it. Sharp. Quality looks good. But I don't know that I want to justify $1,100, as I've already said.
That's what it comes down to for me, is just the price at the end of the day. I think it's a little too expensive for the demographic they're going for.
And for those of you who watched the last Photo News Fix, you saw that Greta Thunberg called us. She's now with Sony PR.
Who's that, Jared? I've never heard of her.
Steven's telling me to stop using Greta in the episodes.
Don't overdo it. That's all I'm asking.
Yeah, but she got arrested, so I had to do it this week.
All right. I'll give you that.
Sony announced the development of a 302.8, and the phone call literally went, Sony is developing a 302.8. It will be available in 2024. And had nothing else to say to us.
That was literally it.
So we can't figure out why they would do that, but I think someone had an idea that it might have to do with financial reporting, that if you're going to say that you have a new lens coming that's going to be, that could be a $7,000-$8,000 lens, and they know that the AP or whoever they have the deal it's the AP, right? The AP shoots Sony, so they know exactly how many of those that the AP is going to buy. So if the AP is like, we're going to take 400 of these lenses, Sony can go ahead and say that we estimate we're going to do X amount of sales at X amount of dollars, which means they can put that in their financial report looking forward. But they may not be able to do that unless they officially announce something. That came from another friend of ours.
But why announce it so early? They said it wasn't coming out until 2024, or more than a year out.
Because I think their fiscal years may end in March, and this may give them a jump start to be able to just mention it. There's got to be some legal wranglings and some stuff on the back end that we don't know about that is why they did it.
My take on it was, I personally think that they kind of knew that the 20-70 was going to be more of a lackluster announcement, and they needed something to kind of juice up that announcement, because the 302.8 was also under NDA embargo until the same date and time as the 20-70. And our initial phone call with Sony, which was again a month or two prior to the 20-70 being announced, they did not mention the 302.8 at all. We had to do a follow-up call just a week or two ago, and why throw it on last minute and not have a part of that initial phone call? That's what I question. Like, why did they randomly add this on last minute? I just think that they got feedback from the 20-70 and they realized, hey, we got to kind of, spice up this announcement.
Yeah. I don't know.
I don't know either. I don't know.
We may never know.
Yeah.
But anyway, putting that thing to rest, did you see the Insta story that I sent you a couple days ago of the girl telling what her shutter speed was, aperture, and then literally shaking the camera without looking through the viewfinder? You saw that?
I did, yes. Your favorite.
I shared this, guys, and I think about sharing this stuff. And when I say think about sharing it, I think like, well, I don't want to damage this photographer, but I also think that this is a terrible thing to be doing.
To teach people to do?
Let me show you. So I'll tell you what it was, because if you didn't see it, it says slow shutter settings. And it's like, I used 1/15 of a second to 1/45 of a second, aperture f8 or above, depending on lighting, and shake your camera a little bit. And oh my God, they're on a beach. Oh my Jesus God. Every time I look at these photos, I want to throw up. This is not photography. And I'm tired of seeing there's always fads, and fads come and go. And you're left with these really bad photos that were part of a fad, like selective color or these blurry, shaky images where you're forcefully blurring the image but it just looks like it's out of focus and handshake because you took a shitty photo. That's what this stuff is looking like.
Again, coming back to that conversation we had a few weeks ago about the same kind of blurry photo fad that's going on, I think if it's used creatively, if it can like support the image's overall theme opposed to being used as purely just aesthetic or a specific style or fad, then I think it could work. Like maybe like a dreamlike sequence, maybe. Again, if it goes with the overall image. But if it's just a random blurry photo for no reason at all, I just think that doesn't even make sense personally.
I think this is a lot of...
It looks like a bad photo at the end of the day. It's not a keeper. Like, why would you even say, that looks cool?
Right.
I don't think I've ever seen a photo, unless you're doing a really slow shutter speed photo and having trails and stuff like that. That's a different story.
Steven, I'm watching it again. Every time I watch her, her hand is on top of the lens. So she doesn't have, and yes, I'm being judgy here. She doesn't have a vertical grip. Right, there's no grip on the camera because I'm looking at it, but she has her hand turned under. So her finger is under the camera for the shutter. The shutter's on the bottom, not the top. I've always found that the shutter on the top just makes more sense because you put your hand under the lens. Here she has her hand on top and she's physically shaking the camera up and down while taking these photos. And I have no problem with experimentation in your work. None at all. But when you're doing this stuff because you think it's good and it's really not, and people are going to be like, well, who are you to say what's good and what's not? History supports what's good and what's not. You can look back at fads and realize they were fads and they were going to be fads. The blown out, bright ass flash in people's faces that kids are doing now. They're buying old cameras. They're buying old point and shoots from the early 2000s and they think they look great, probably because it just is a basic shot where it's 6 or 7 megapixels and you pop in a flash from 4 feet away and they just like the party feel and the party nature of it. That's fine. I have no problem with experimentation. But when you're selling this as quality and people look at it, they're like, and they think it's good, that's a problem. Now, I went into the comment section here because there is someone that I follow did comment on this, and she wrote, beautiful. I bet they loved these photos with a heart emoji. Well, I want to talk to her about this. I'm like, this idea that everybody is so nice to everybody in the comments when they might be on the best. This girl's she's just nice. She's just on the,
I mean, there's nothing wrong with being nice.
There's nothing wrong with being nice, but I can't lie.
This pisses me off. Why is everyone so damn nice? I can't be like, this photo
is good. So let's see. What did people also write? Sweet. So you also give a little shake to the camera in addition to having your couples move? Thanks for this. I'm going to try this out. What? Are you kidding me?
And I think if it's used sparingly, like if you did have an entire photo shoot, maybe one of these photos of them running on the beach showing action and movement, if that's blurry, I kind of get that. Because I am looking at this specific photographer's their entire Instagram, and they have good work. So it's not like they're a bad photographer. But
well, that's why I hesitate to share this stuff all the time. But I also, because I believe I said that when I wrote it, I'm like, I'm not ripping on this photographer. I'm ripping on what they're doing and selling. And I don't want to hear someone commented, just in case client asks for sharp images, laughy face. And then the girl replies, if a client asks for sharp images, I'll give them only sharp images.
All right, they shouldn't be asking for sharp images. It should be a given. They're not asking
for sharp images. The client's coming to you, hey, I saw this shitty trend on TikTok where photos are out of focus. I think that's really fucking cool. Well, I'd be like, you know what? Why don't we put a camera around a dog or give it to a 2-year-old and let them press the shutter button and call that photography? Shit, someone's already doing that probably, Steven.
Well, see, and I'm curious too. I can tell that she has a very specific style to her edits, almost
it's
like
the
a
20-something style,
like a certain preset. Yeah, like that dark tan skin look and changing the color of the skin and that teal and orange kind of look overall. And I get that, but I think if they strip that photo, like any of the photos that were blurry of that specific style and preset, look at the photo. It just looks like a shitty, random blurry photo. But the fact that they slap that preset on there, I think that's what people are interested in, and that's what makes it like look more like a true photograph. But for the average viewer.
Right, and there's nothing wrong with slow shutter speed. I encourage
not at all.
The experimentation in situations where it makes sense.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying, though, where it makes sense.
But just having an image that's blurry because you shook it and it's out of focus or whatever, if it doesn't have context, like if you were at 1/60th of a second and you're photographing some sports and it's not slow enough that there's some panning or there's some actual good motion captured, but it just looks like it's out of focus and you screwed up, that's not good. So you're either too slow or you're not fast enough, right? And so that's where experimentation comes into play.
Well, and when it comes to panning too, there typically is always a sharp part of the photo of what, the actual subject that you're panning with. And then you're showing the trail, the movement, the blur, just showcasing action or movement in general. But there's still the main subject, which typically is sharp for the most part. But that's where I think slow shutter shines and where you can get blurry movement. But again, there's still a part of the actual main core subject image that's nice and sharp.
So after she said that if they want sharp images, she gives them, the person went and wrote, well, that was my point. You never know what the client wants exactly when on location. Sometimes they change their mind. Laughy face. That would be better to do that in post rather than sacrificing the image. No, dude, that's a stupid comment too.
But I can never see someone going, hey, I want blurry photos.
Well, here,
I can't. I'm paying you top dollar. Why would I ask for blurry photos?
Usually I ask my clients what kind of photos they're looking for before I go on a shoot. But true, you could always do it in post. No, don't do this in post. That's another stupid statement that people come up with. Do it in post. And why are you asking your clients what photos they're looking for? The clients come to you because they see your style that you put out into the world.
Yep.
They're going to be like, I like what you do. Can you do it? I don't go, hey, are you looking for some out of focus images? Are you looking for some images that are super sharp? Hey, are you looking for some black and whites? I'm going to give you what I give you as a professional. You are the photographer.
You should be directing. You're the photographer, like you're saying, not them. They shouldn't be directing and saying, hey, I want blurry photos. Hey, I want this type of aesthetic, whatever it may be. You need to be the one in charge.
Yeah, and other comments just keep going on with, just hand the camera to a person who does not know anything about cameras.
Exactly.
Automatically, the photos will come out blurry. So the moral of bringing this up is not ripping on this photographer. She has good work. She has the work that is very similar to a lot of 20-something work that you see out there these days. Like what Steven said, they follow a method, the same preset, the same look, the same style, the same feel that basically everybody else's feels like. But that's fine because a lot of photography still comes down to marketing. And doing that. I just do not agree with this thing that was going around about shaking your camera.
100% agree.
Speaking of subjectivity when it comes to art, Steven, you know that I'm an artiste now?
Oh.
I talked about my painting class a couple weeks ago and last week, but I decided to partake in an exercise where I'm exercising my brain. But basically,
you're getting
I'm drawing,
smarter, are you?
I don't know. The photo of Paris that I took from the window of my Airbnb.
Which I do love that photo, by the way. I always test presets out on that specific photo.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I do like
blurry?
that photo.
I didn't ask the customer if they wanted it to be blurry.
Well, my new adaptive preset from Lightroom makes every photo completely blurry.
Dude, you should do that. We should make the Xenial pod. We should call one Xenial. We should call one Dumbass. So basically, I started this idea where I'm going to draw a sketch or whatever of this picture every day. I'm on yesterday was day 6, and yesterday was the first time I didn't draw the whole photo. I zoomed in and just drew a portion of one of the window panes, and I was much more detailed with staccato, like stippling. I don't know what the hell they call it.
Are you saying you cropped?
It's a painting. Fuck.
You cropped?
No, I zoomed in. Steven.
You cropped.
That's not photography.
But you didn't take the photo like that, Jared.
Right. This isn't photography.
You're zooming in after the fact, though. You're cropping.
I'm drawing it. It's details. It's details, Steven. So that's the challenge I'm giving myself. Every day I'm doing that drawing. Sometimes it's fast. Cool. Sometimes it's slow. Sometimes I use pencils. Sometimes I use pens. Sometimes I use markers.
Everybody's got to have a hobby, yeah.
And you can follow it on my Instagram. I've just been posting it as a photo story, and you can follow along. Some people are like, this is really good. And I'm like, are you sure this is good? But then I keep coming back to it. Like, some of them, I'm like, I actually like this. I actually think it looks good. And one day I'll sell them all for lots of money.
30 grand.
It's not about the money. It's not about the money, but
not about the money yet.
I bet you I could sell some of them.
I know you're probably thinking about it. You're thinking about it.
That's the thing with
art.
How
can I monetize this?
It's so subjective, Steven, that, the worst things in the world that we perceive to be terrible could sell for a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
Basquiat. I mean, $200 million for his crayon drawings. Or in Steven's case, crown drawings.
Crown? What?
That's a throwback to like 7 years ago on RAWtalk.
Oh, man.
Hashtag 7 years ago on RAWtalk.
Is it crayon or crown?
Crayon. Crown.
Oh, the Philly got to me. Crown.
Yeah. Anyway, Steven, that's what I got to do today. I got painting tonight, painting class. I'm going to see if I can talk to this lady there.
Oh.
And
make sure you get her pronouns right.
Damn it. Shit. One more thing to worry about. Excuse me. Hey, you over there. They, them. Oh, geez. Did Jared just make fun of pronouns? Shit. Is he going to be canceled? No.
That's why we call it RAWtalk.
It's RAWtalk. So
Covers
we can say what we
everything.
want.
Exactly.
We can even say. Exactly. We can say all that stuff.
Let's wrap it up.
All right, guys. Thank you very much for listening. Please support at least check out the sponsors that we talk about,
Yes.
which this one had one. And we're going to figure out how that's going to go in the future. This was the first one that we did. We don't even know if they'll like it. We never know. But the whole point of a sponsorship is to make you aware of something that you might not have been aware of before, but it's also not something like crypto or something that we don't support or believe in. This is actually something that could help you guys.
Exactly.
If you're in the market for something like that. I also asked our ad guy to start looking for stuff that is not photo related, that's much easier to use. Not much easier to use, but just something that is a catch-all that we could do for people. But I already have said no to about 3 of them, and I'm not going to explain that why now, but I don't like some of the companies that came along, and I'm like, no. Bring me Audible. Audible is something that everybody could use. Bring me the Manscaper. Everybody can do it. Speaking of Manscaper, Steven, you know that nick your sack, send it back guarantee?
Yeah.
I fucking nicked my sack.
Well, send it back.
And it bloodied. It bleeded.
I would think if you nick your sack, it's going to bleed, yes.
Yeah, that was not fun.
Ooh.
Maybe the Manscaper 5.0 has fixed that. I'll have to send it back.
I can't wait till we get to the point where we're doing plugs in the beginning and it's like, right before we jump into this podcast.
I don't want to do that.
You guys know what I'm talking about.
Give us feedback, guys. Send us a text message at the phone number, which is starts with a 313.
Here we go.
And it goes on to be 313, what's it, 717
9279.
That's wrong though. It's 313-710-9729.
Wait, 9729 or 9279?
9729.
Oh, okay.
RAW. It's 9 raw. So 313-710-9729.
And I always ask if you guys can give us a rating or a written review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Please, that does help us out.
All right. I got to go eat some lunch, Steven, because I have to eat early dinner because of art class starting at 6:30.
Sounds good.
All right, guys. Thank you very much for listening. Jared, PolinFronosPhoto.com. See ya.
Bye.
No, bye. You better get it right, Steven. He, they.